Hey there, and welcome to the Event Crushed podcast. Each week, we'll be chatting about all things wedding industry, entrepreneurship, and how to crush it in life and business. I'm so glad you're here. Now, let's dive into this week's episode. Hey friend, welcome back to the Event Crushed podcast. I'm so glad you're here today. I hope that wherever you are staying nice and cool, because here in Oregon, where I am, it is very, very hot. I think we're looking at a high of 102 degrees today, so quite warm. And my office, where I'm recording this from, actually doesn't have air conditioning, so I'm quite toasty at the moment. I have air conditioning right outside of my office, so if I were to open my door, it would be much cooler, but because I am recording this, I have to keep the door closed. So I may or may not be sweating a tiny bit, but that's okay. We're just going to push through. I think this episode will be fairly short. Today, I'm going to be chatting about what I would do differently if I were starting my business today in 2024 rather than back in 2012 when I did start my business. So I have been reflecting on these last 12 years of business, and I have 5 things that I would potentially do differently. So I just wanted to share those with you because I think for any business owner, any new business owner, there are so many different ways to do things, and it can be super overwhelming, especially if it's new to you and you're just kind of figuring it out as you go. So anytime that I can share from my own experience, I love to be able to do that, because back when I was starting, 12 years ago, I really didn't have a whole lot of resources and mentors and people to kind of show me the way. I just kind of made a way, as a lot of us did and as a lot of us do. But now there's just so many opportunities. There's podcasts, there's conferences, there's free education, there's paid education, there's masterminds. There's so many opportunities now, and I just think that that is amazing. It can also be overwhelming because there's decision fatigue and having to figure out what direction to go with your business. But anywho, I just love being able to share kind of from my own personal experience since I've been doing it for a little while. So we will jump into that in just a moment. So next month, August of 2024, is actually my 12-year anniversary of the first wedding that I ever planned and coordinated as Event Crush, which is pretty cool, especially because the couple, I'm still friends with them. They are still happily married. They're going strong, and that just makes me so happy. I just saw them on the 4th of July. So I love, being able to reflect back on that wedding, my first wedding ever. And it was still like one of my favorite weddings ever. So if I were starting my business in 2024 instead of 2012, here are the 5 things that I would do differently. So number 1, I would have invested in the necessary tools to run my business from the get-go so that I had clear systems set up for my clients before bringing on my first client. So what I did do, and I will say there were very limited options back then. There weren't all these programs and tools for planners or wedding pros in general. So I really just had Word documents. Word document for my contract, Word document for my invoice, Word document for my planning tools. Like, it was pretty much all Word docs in the beginning. I think this was before even it must have been before Google Docs. So anyways, things have changed a lot, but that is what I was kind of piecemealing together back then. Now there's, as you know, so many options and tools. And so I would have invested in that earlier. I'm sure there was something back then that I could have used. I probably just didn't know about it. I started using Aisle Planner a few years into business. I don't know exactly when I signed up for Aisle Planner and started using them, but it was relatively early on. But I definitely had at least a couple years of just kind of DIYing my systems and processes for my clients, which, it doesn't provide the greatest client experience and the greatest level of service. So looking back now, I wish I would have taken some time to really hone in on that process and make it as enjoyable and easy as I could for my clients. Nowadays, we have Honeybook, we have Aisle Planner, we have Sweet Dash, and the Refine portal, which is what I use currently. There's Dubsado, there's 17 Hats. Like there's so many great tools out there. I feel like there's just no excuse to not have a good system set up in the beginning. I understand being on a budget and wanting to save money and all of that. But I feel like between these programs, I mean, especially with the discounts you can get, there's so many great options. So I just feel like there's no excuse not to have a great system set up from the very beginning. Like you don't need to just throw it together and piecemeal it together and then decide to do that. Like do that from the beginning. So that's the first thing. And I also wanted to add that if you go back and listen to episode 4, if you haven't already, I actually shared all of my favorite tools for wedding pros. And so I talked about some of the ones I just mentioned and many others. So definitely check out that episode if you haven't already. Moving on to number 2, the second thing I would do differently if I were starting my business now in 2024, I would have managed my money better. Man, I could probably talk a lot about this, but I was not great with my money in the beginning. It was just very relaxed. I guess I think in the first couple of years of my business, even though it was my only job, I wasn't necessarily working in it full time. It hadn't gotten to that level yet. And I did have a baby and a lot going on in life, but even still, I didn't take it as seriously as I should have. And I didn't do a great job of keeping my books. It was just really very relaxed. And also for the first several years of my business, we didn't really have a good system for like giving me paychecks or paying myself. We would just kind of transfer money out of my business account into our personal checking account whenever we needed it. And it was just kind of a hot mess for a while there. So yikes. So looking back now, I wish I would have had a better system in place for paying myself and just managing my money and my finances in general. I had a spreadsheet that I used to keep track of my income and expenses, but I did not update it regularly. Like I wasn't in it all the time. I would probably go like a couple months without, like I'd just forget about it. And then I would be like, oh yeah, I need to update my income and expenses in my spreadsheet. And I would manually do it. And it was very just tedious. And I really do not enjoy that type of work. So I think that's why I didn't do it very often, but I definitely could have done a better job of keeping track of my expenses for my business, my income, just generally my finances. So I wish I would have started using a program like QuickBooks Online or Wave, which has a free option. I did start using that a few years in, but I wish I would have started utilizing that right from the get-go, as it does connect to your bank account and it will just pull everything into the program for you. So you're not having to manually enter it all, which is the best. I also at that point was saving all of my paper receipts, and I just had like a big file folder that I had all these paper receipts and I wasn't saving them digitally. So that's another thing that if I could go back, I would have started saving them digitally, because there's a lot of different ways you can do that for free. And so that's just a quick and easy thing you can do to clear clutter, to not have to hold on to all these physical receipts. I also would have started using YNAB earlier. I definitely didn't know about it until later, and I don't know if it existed in 2012. I don't know what year they started. I think we started using it as a family in 2016. Somewhere around there. I'm not 100% sure on that, but we started using it for our personal finances, and then we each started using it for our business finances as well. And that was a game changer. YNAB, or You Need a Budget, is absolutely amazing. And if you heard episode 4, you would have heard me mention that. It's a great way to not just track your income and expenses. It does do that, but it helps you to budget for all of your future expenses. Like if you have large annual expenses that come out, like your business insurance or just any large bills that come out once a year, if you're not planning for those and setting money aside every single month, that might come as a surprise when it hits your bank account. And it's like, oh crap, I wasn't saving for that. But with YNAB, you can set aside money every single month to build up in that category so that when that expense comes out, you're totally prepared. The money has been sitting there waiting for that. So we really love YNAB. Okay, the next thing I would do differently. Number 3, I would have invested in education sooner. This is a really big one for me because I love education so much and there's so much value in it. And I just truly believe we should always be working to better ourselves and our businesses. But I didn't really take advantage of this until I know the first real education that I invested in was a mastermind I joined in the spring of 2018. So I was already like 6 years into business at this point. And it felt so scary because it felt like a lot of money to put into this, which now I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, it was nothing. But at the time it was like probably around $1,000 that I did to be a part of this small group mastermind with Lena Richards, who she used to own Something Borrowed Rentals in Portland. And then at the time, she had a coaching business called Wedding Pro Coaching. And anyways, it was awesome. We had monthly calls with myself, and I think there were like 6 of us business owners in the group. And it was just so insightful to hear from the others. Some of us were planners, some were rental companies. It's funny because this was before I had my rental company, but it was just an awesome experience. And from that, I just became like hooked on education. And I wanted to do all the courses and all the conferences and all of it. And so it wasn't long after that I attended my first in-person conference called Creative at Heart in North Carolina in the fall of 2018. And that was an incredible experience. I absolutely loved it. And still to this day, like certain contacts that I made there, certain experiences are just still very meaningful to me. So huge fan of in-person conferences. Speaking of which, the next year after that in 2019 was the first time I attended Wedding MBA in November of 2019. And I've been a total of 3 times so far. And I will be joining this year as well. So if you are going to be at Wedding MBA, hit me up. I would love to meet up with you. That would be a blast. It's one of my favorite things in the world. I just love it so much. It's mostly for me, it's the networking aspect of it. It's just the connecting with all the different wedding pros and business owners. It's the mixers and the dance parties, and just, it's so fun. I cannot say enough great things about Wedding MBA. If you've ever thought about it or been on the fence about it, just do it. Just make it happen. It's so affordable. It is like the most affordable in-person conference that you can do. And it is so worth the money. I cannot stress that enough. I will probably go every year that I'm able because I just always have such a great time. I meet so many amazing people. I reconnect with people that I've met at Wedding MBA in years past. And there's just, it's just so fun. And it's just a great little getaway for that week. So can't recommend it enough. All right, moving on to number 4. The next thing I would have done differently, I would have grown my team and hired an associate coordinator even sooner. So truly, this has been one of the biggest game changers for my business. I actually had tried to do this earlier on. I want to say around 2018, I did try to hire an associate coordinator, and I did hire a girl and I trained her all summer long, and then she was going to do her own weddings, but life happened. She got a different job. It didn't end up working out. And I think that experience, like after going through all of that of, training her and kind of having this expectation and then it not working out, it made me think, I don't want to do that again. It was just such a bummer, and I didn't want to do it again. So instead I was like, you know what? I don't want to go that direction anymore. I kind of went in a different direction. But ultimately, since bringing on Callie, my associate coordinator in 2022, it has just been an incredible experience. I have zero regrets at this point about it. It has been an incredible experience. I still can't get over the fact that I am at home with my family, or I'm shopping, or we're camping, or whatever. And Callie is out there, with our team doing a wedding. Like, it's just the coolest feeling. And I felt that same way with our rentals when we had them, because we'd have like a team of people out there delivering rentals and doing all these things. And I would just be home with my family. And I have never really gotten over that. Like, it's just a very, very cool thing. And it's still relatively new to my business. So I don't feel like I'm a complete expert in that area. But I will say I was having a conversation with another wedding planner recently, and she was expressing how she is really interested in bringing on an associate coordinator, but just that, being able to give up that control is really scary and hard, especially for us type A people who want to just be in control and make everything happen. And so I actually reached out to a friend who is very, very well versed in this area of growing a team and all of that. And so I'm hoping that she's going to come on the show. So fingers crossed. I'm not 100% sure yet, but I'm hoping we'll make it happen. And so she will talk all about this topic of growing a team and why you should grow a team and what it looks like and different ways to do it and all of that. Anyways, but that is definitely something that now that I've done it, I'm like, dang, I wish I would have started that sooner, because at this point I could have like multiple coordinators on my team and it could just be even, more than it is. So it's one of those things that I do wish I would have started a little bit sooner. Okay, moving on to number 5. The last thing that I'm going to say, I'm sure there's probably more things I would have done differently, but the last one for now that came to mind as I was writing all of this is I wish I would have started giving back to the community through my business sooner. So this is something I've really just started doing over the last couple of years through my work with a local nonprofit here in Eugene, Every Child Lane County, and also through my church here in Eugene, and just donating my time and services to causes that I care deeply about is so incredibly fulfilling, because I'm not always able to support causes financially or in other ways, but being able to contribute my time and my experience and my services, like that is something that I can do in this season of life. And I honestly don't think I was able to in another season of life, because my kids were small and they required a lot more of my time and attention. And, I was still figuring out business stuff. But now it's like at this point in my life, my kids are older. I have my business pretty dialed in. I have expanded. And so with that, I have been able to do this. There's just something so special about it. I'm very grateful to be able to partner with some different local nonprofits now, even just another one that I just signed on to help with for an event in October. So I really, really enjoy working with nonprofits, and it's just being able to support their cause, especially when it's something that's near and dear to my heart, and helping them to raise money for their cause. Like, it's just such a cool thing. And so I wish I wouldn't have waited until like 10 years in a business to do this. But like I said, ultimately, I don't know if I really would have been able to fully give to it before that, but I'd like to think I would have been able to. So if you are able to donate your expertise, your knowledge, your skills, your time to a cause that you care about, I just cannot recommend it enough. So that's my list of 5 things, but I do have a little bonus for you. I also have 2 things that I would do the same. So I think, I got a lot of things wrong maybe in the beginning of my business, but hey, I got some things right too. So here's a couple of things I would do the same if I was just starting my business right now in 2024. So number 1 is I would prioritize networking and building relationships from the get-go. As you know, this is a huge passion of mine. In the beginning, it was very scary to put myself out there. I was a nobody. Like, nobody knew who I was. I was just a girl with a dream. And like, I remember that feeling of just putting myself out there, reaching out to people, trying to connect with vendors and venues, and nobody knew who I was. And it was extremely scary, but I knew how important it was to my business growth. And so I did it anyway. I pushed through the fear and I did it anyway. And so I'm very, very glad that I did, because here we are now, and I can attribute a lot of my success to the relationships that I have built. So one thing I did was reaching out to local venues, introducing myself, going and doing tours of the venues and learning about the venues, and then eventually booking weddings there, and then getting on the preferred vendors list for that venue. Also planning and participating in styled shoots in those early days as kind of a form of networking and building relationships with those vendors taking part in the shoots to create content and connect. Like, that is something that I am very, very glad that I did, and continue to recommend to those who are just getting started as well. And honestly, I think networking has come up in just about every single episode I've done so far. This is episode 13, so but I'm not mad about it. In fact, I talk about networking so much that I was asked to speak on this very topic during an upcoming online summit for wedding professionals. So I can't wait to share more details about this with you. So stay tuned. I'm sure I'll be sharing more about that in a future episode. And number 2, the second thing I would do the same if I were starting my business now is I would prioritize SEO. And I think this is like a huge opportunity. Like this is an area that people are not prioritizing in their businesses right now. And frankly, like it's hurting them because they're relying on Instagram and they're relying on these channels that they don't own. And really, we need to be relying on areas that we own, like our website and an email newsletter. And so to this day, a large majority of my inquiries come from Google. In the beginning, I did research SEO quite a bit. I tried to do a lot of that legwork because I knew that it was important. And I knew that like a goal in the beginning was I want to rank on page 1 of Google. And I remember doing what I could to get my keywords in there and post blogs regularly and all of that. And I can remember like at first, when I would Google Eugene wedding planner, I would be on, page 3. And then I would do it again like a week later and I was on page 2. And I would do it again a week or, I don't remember the timeline, but I remember distinctly like checking it every so often. And then suddenly, I'm on page 1 of Google for my keyword. And it was just so exciting. And I know that that would potentially be really exciting for a lot of you who are not, ranking for their search terms right now. It is possible you can make it happen, but you have to learn about SEO or you have to hire somebody who knows SEO to help you out. But it's not going to happen if you just keep doing what you're doing right now, quite frankly. So it's so worth it to put in the time and the effort to rank for your keywords because people will find you on Google. And that's where a lot of really great clients come from, is finding me on Google. So anyways, that's my final tidbit about what I would do the same if I were starting my business all over again. It's definitely a different world now than when I started in like so many different ways. Like the couples getting married are different. The businesses are different. The internet is different. The tools that are available are different. The education is different. Everything. It's like just a different landscape than when I started, which is so interesting to me to just have been in it for all these years and to have watched these changes happen. And frankly, like there's a lot of really great things about where we're at in the industry right now. I think we've come a long way. There's still things, we can improve upon. There's still a long way to go in certain areas. But I think honestly, I just love being a part of the wedding industry. I think it's one of the most amazing industries in the world. I think it's filled with amazing people. Like just some of the best people are in the wedding industry. And I saw something on Threads recently where someone was like bashing wedding pros. I don't know. It was coming from a wedding pro. Like it was like a wedding photographer who was like talking crap about how wedding pros are, I don't even know, but it just like, it hurt. Like it bummed me out because I'm like, are you kidding? Like, do you know any wedding pros? Like, they're all amazing. Obviously, with anything, there's going to be like the bad apples and the people who are jerks. Like, that's going to be anywhere. But as a whole, like as an entire group of people, the wedding industry is filled with amazing people. And so I'm just going to leave you with that today. I really appreciate you tuning in and listening. We're going to be camping next week, which I'm so excited about because we haven't gone camping in a million years and it's about time. But thankfully, I have an episode pre-recorded and ready to go that I'll be dropping on Friday. So I'm really excited for you to hear that. It is with a awesome wedding photographer turned business coach. Her name is Aislinn McKenna, and I think you're going to learn a lot from her. So that's coming next Friday. And in the meantime, I hope you have a great weekend and a great week next week, and we'll catch you back here next time. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Event Crushed podcast. I hope you found value in this episode, and if you did, please consider sharing it with a wedding industry friend. We also hope you'll consider leaving a rating or review for the show to help other listeners find it. This podcast is edited and produced by Ace Sound Design. If you're looking to elevate your audio experience, their info can be found in the show description. As always, thank you for listening, and please connect with us on Instagram if you haven't already. Now get out there and crush it.